All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Planetarium show. My name is Jessica. I'm the director of the Planetarium, and with me tonight is one of our students who has been here before, but not in a while, so I will definitely let them introduce themselves.
My name is Len. I am a teaching physics major and an astronomy minor here at UMD.
Awesome. And she's a little off camera, but we've also got Nova right here, my cat, hanging out with me on the desk tonight. So if anything funky happens on stream, blame her. Uh, Okay, so tonight is our monthly constellation story time where we will take a look at the stars and constellations we can see out in January. Let me start getting everything set up. Now, as always, if you have any questions throughout the show, feel free to leave them down in the comments. Lena's going to keep an eye on that for me and let me know when questions come up. Do keep in mind there is a little bit of a delay, so if we don't get to them right away, we will answer questions at the end. Okay, so I have us set up ready for the star show. If you are new here or haven't seen one of our star shows on the live stream before, we use a program called Stellarium. It's fantastic. It's like a desktop planetarium. You put in your date, time, and location, and it shows you what the sky looks like for you. So I have this set up for right now for here in Duluth, Minnesota, since that is where our planetarium is located. If you are in a different location, the sky will look a little bit different. As long as you're in the northern hemisphere, you will still see pretty much all of the stuff that I talk about. It just may be in a slightly different location. Um, but if you're wanting to know what things would look like for you, you can always download Stellarium and check it out yourself. It is completely free, and there's a link in the video description. All right, now that that's all squared away, let's take a look at our sky. We are still in the midst of winter. In fact, we had I think, beautiful snow showers today. Nice big fluffy flakes this morning. And since we are still in winter, that means sunset is happening pretty early. It's been dark for a couple hours here already. So we have our nice dark sky here. If we look over towards the west, we're still seeing remnants of summer in the sky. We've still got parts of our summer triangle visible. And we've also got several planets that we can see out right now. Saturn has just started dipping below the horizon, but if you were out a couple hours ago when it first got dark, you would have seen Saturn hanging out in the southwest. We've got Jupiter still out right now, and it's very bright. It's pretty easy to find because it is brighter than all of the stars around it. So if you're out looking in the southwest, you see this one really bright thing, it's probably Jupiter. And then as we head around over in the southeast, we have our last planet that is currently visible, and that is Mars hanging out with our winter constellations, which I'll get to in just a minute. So I'm going to turn us back around to the north because that is where we're going to get started with our constellations. I always like to start in the north, one, because there's some bright objects that are easily identifiable, but for most people in the northern hemisphere, these objects, these constellations that I'm going to talk about in the north, are up all year round. So it's a really great place to begin your night sky viewing, especially if you're still new to navigating around the night sky and finding things in it. It's a great kind of foundation and anchor point. You figure out kind of where things are in the north, and then you can use those to kind of jump around the rest of the sky. So the first thing I always point out here in the north is these 7 stars that are hanging out pretty low in the northern hemisphere or northern sky this time of year. These 7 stars are commonly known as the Big Dipper, right? We have the handle and the cup. Now, the Big Dipper itself is not a constellation, it's an asterism. So that means it's a smaller grouping of stars within a larger constellation. In this case, the seven stars of the Big Dipper are a part of Ursa Major, or the Big Bear, which is a Greek constellation. So to see the full bear, we have to add on some other stars. So the handle of the Dipper is the tail of the bear, and then we have the back, ear, nose, chest. Oh, we just saw a little meteor I almost said Digistar, in Stellarium. Do I have meteor showers turned on? Apparently I do. Anyway, so that's the first time I've seen that, so that was really cool. Where was I? Okay, tail, back, ear, nose, chest, front legs, belly, and back legs. So front legs, belly, back legs. I'll go ahead and turn that on for us. So that is our Big Bear Ursa Major. Now, as many of you may know, since we have a Big Bear and a Big Dipper, that means we also have a Little Bear and Little Dipper. The Little Bear and Little Dipper can be harder to find, especially if you are not in super dark skies, because most of the stars in the constellation of the Little Bear are fairly dim. So here's the trick to finding it. You're actually going to use the Big Dipper to help you. So you're going to go to the Big Dipper, go to these front two stars in the cup of the Dipper. These are our pointer stars. You're going to connect that line and follow that line up, and it's going to point you to this bright star. This is the star Polaris, or you might know it as the North Star. And it is the end of the handle of the Little Dipper. So we have the handle and the cup here. Now, in this program, because I have it set to show decently dark skies, you can tell that there are, in fact, 7 stars in the Little Dipper. For most people, when they go out, they are going to have some light pollution. That's light from houses, cars, street lights, things like that. These 4 stars in the middle tend to get drowned out by even a small amount of light pollution. So most likely you will see the North Star, and then you will see the front 2 stars in the Little Dipper. And that's where I was saying it can be difficult for people to know and to find it because, hi Nova, because they're looking for the whole thing when a lot of the stars are actually getting blocked, being outshined by that light pollution. Come over here, Nova. All right, so the Little Dipper is also our little bear. We don't have any extra stars to add here. So the handle of the Little Dipper is, again, the tail of the bear. And then we have the back legs, body, and front legs. And so that is our little bear. And so there are our Big Bear and Little Bear. Now these are Greek constellations. And most of the constellations that we talk about and most of the constellations that people know tend to be Greek constellations. This happens for a couple of reasons. One, the Greeks were really good at writing things down, and the things that they wrote down were preserved and shared and passed on. And so a lot of other cultures then adopted the Greek constellation into theirs. The other reason is when the International Astronomical Union, the IAU, decided to make an official map of the night sky. They predominantly for the Northern Hemisphere used Greek constellations to do that, splitting the sky into, in total, 88 equal segments. And they did this just to have a common map that can be used by people all over the world. Since cultures all over the world have their own constellations, it became difficult to describe where you were seeing things if you didn't have a common map to use. And so because of that, the Greek became the pseudo official constellations. You'll notice I'm using air quotes because they're not really the right or the correct or the official ones. They're just the ones that were picked for the map. Um, so I'm going on all of this preamble to say that these same stars that the Greeks saw these bears with, cultures from all over the world see different things there. Looking a little bit closer to home, the Ojibwe, who are indigenous here to Minnesota and the Great Lakes region, also see a couple of animals, but they see different animals than bears. So here where the Greeks saw a big bear, the Ojibwe actually see a fisher. And here is one of the cool things with Stellarium. I can actually go in, where's it at, and tell it to put up Ojibwe constellations. So here we have the Fisher. You can see it uses a lot of the same stars as the Big Bear. It's just the legs are a little bit shorter. And what the Greeks saw as the Little Bear, they don't see as a little fisher. This is actually a bird, specifically a loon. And so we have the bird is kind of upside down, but the curve of the handle is the curve of the loon's back. And then this would be the head of the loon. And I'm able to share these constellations with you now because there is snow on the ground, so we're able to talk about them. But with that, let me get us back over to our Greek constellations. Turn the two we've looked at on, and we will move on now over to our eastern sky. Now, over in the east sits what we call the winter hexagon, because there are 6 very prominent constellations that are best visible during the winter season. Now, one of the constellations is still a little bit low on the ground, or under the ground, a little bit low below the horizon. So I am just going to fast forward time just a little bit, just so we can bring it up and I can show you the full winter hexagon. So this is, again, just fast forwarding time. Let me go a little bit faster than that. All right, that looks good. So that's going to take us to about 9 o'clock. But as we progress through the month, everything will be up earlier and earlier in the evening. So you won't have to wait till 9 o'clock at like the end of the month. It'll be up a little bit earlier. All right. So, winter hexagon. We're going to start off with the most recognizable and known of these constellations, and that is this one right here. We have Orion the Hunter. Best found because we have the 3 stars in a row that make up his belt, and those are surrounded by 4 stars that make a rectangle around his belt. So we have his belt, a sword hanging off of the belt, his 2 shoulders, his 2 knees, and then we have either a shield and a club or a bow and some arrows. So that is Orion the Hunter. Now the star that I circled, you can see here its name is Betelgeuse. Most of the star names that you see on here are Arabic, and that's because the Arabic astronomers actually adopted the Greek constellations and then realized that there were no names for the bright stars, so they started naming those bright stars. And so because of that, a lot of the names of the stars are actual descriptions of kind of what they are within the constellation. So for example, Betelgeuse here, if you translate it from Arabic, it is the armpit of the hunter, because that's where the star is located. Now, you may notice that the star has a kind of reddish tint to it, and that's real. You can see that with your eye as well. That happens because Betelgeuse is a red supergiant. So this is a massive star at the end of its life. And eventually it will die in a massive explosion we call a supernova. Now, this sounds terrifying. Um, we are thankfully far enough away that we are in no danger when the supernova happens, but we are close enough that it is going to be incredibly bright. In fact, it's estimated that it will be bright enough to be seen even during the daytime. Thanks, Nova. Which I'm kind of excited about. So we don't know when this is going to happen. It's astronomically soon, which could be tomorrow, could be 5,000 years from now. We just don't know. I personally want it in my lifetime. That's, come on, Nova, move back over here. Thank you. The other thing that I want to point out in Orion is his belt, or hanging off of his belt is his sword here. Now, to your eye, it may look like you have 3 individual stars there. But if you look closely at that middle star, you'll notice it's not a single point of light. It looks a little fuzzy. And in fact, if we zoom on into it, you will see that it's not a star. This is the Orion Nebula. So a nebula is a cloud of gas and dust in space. This one's named the Orion Nebula. It's found in the Orion constellation. And it is a stellar nursery. So it is a giant gas cloud where stars are being born. It is absolutely beautiful. It is one of my favorite things to look at through a telescope in the winter sky. Now, when you look at it through a telescope, you're not going to see quite as much vivid colors or detail. And that's just because cameras can capture light more efficiently and for longer than your eye does. So cameras can get better color recognition that your eye won't pick up on. But I think it's one of the few nebula that still look really impressive, even to your eye through a telescope. So because of that, it's one of my favorite winter targets. All right, now Orion is not alone in the sky. He has 2 companions, 2 hunting dogs with him. To find the first, we are going to take Orion's belt and we're going to follow it down to this super bright star, which you can see here is labeled Sirius. Sirius is the brightest star in the night sky. And it's part of the Greek constellation of Canis Major, the big dog, and that's why it's often called the dog star. In fact, if you are a Harry Potter fan, this may kind of sound vaguely familiar because the character Sirius Black is an animagus who turns into a dog. Spoilers, I guess. Tofa, stop. Um, and that was direct inspiration from the night sky. In fact, there's a lot of astronomical inspiration in the names of characters and in creatures found in Harry Potter. We do a show on that in October as part of our Spooktober shows. So if you didn't catch that, you can go find it on our page in the video section. We have all of the recordings of our past shows there. All right, so Sirius is part of the big dog. There's a couple of different ways to picture him. I'm going to show you first how I picture him, and then we'll see how the program does it, because it's a little bit different than how I do. So I picture it as Sirius is his eye, and then here we have pointy ears. Here we have his mouth open, because he's kind of barking, and then back here would be his body and his little legs coming off here, and then a tail right here. So eye, ears, mouth, body, legs, and tail. That's how I've always pictured it. The way this program pictures it, which you'll see here, is Sirius is a jewel on the dog's collar. And so we have the head and the body and the legs like that. And that is the big dog. Now, just like with our bears, since we have a big dog, that does mean we also have a little dog, and this is a heck of a constellation. To find it, we are going to star hop up and to the left to this bright star, which you see here is labeled Procyon. It is the brightest star in Canis Minor, the little dog, and that constellation consists of Procyon and this star. Yeah, it's two stars. It's a line. Somehow that's supposed to make a dog. Really got to use your imagination there. Nova, are you wanting down? 1 second, people. Oh, there you go. She's too spoiled. Anyway, I guess it could be like a wiener dog, maybe. I always like to joke that this is just a stick that Orion is throwing for the big dog, but there you go. There's our little dog. Okay, so that is half of our winter hexagon. To find our next constellation, we're going to go back up to Orion, back to his belt, and this time, instead of following it down to Sirius, we're going to follow it up until we reach this V in the sky. This V is the head of Taurus the bull. The brightest star is the mad red eye of the bull. This is the other eye. The rest of the V is kind of his snout, and then his horns come up this way, and his body stretches out this way. And so there we have Taurus the bull. Now, inside of Taurus's body, there is a little group of stars here. This is often mistaken for the Little Dipper because it is slightly dipperish in shape. It is also very tiny, and it's very bright and easy to see. Remember, the Little Dipper, it's very difficult to see all of those stars. So this misunderstanding, this misidentification makes complete sense. But this little group of stars is actually the Pleiades star cluster. So to your eye, you can see 6 or 7 bright stars. That's why a lot of the other names for it use the number 6 or 7. For example, you may know it as the 7 maidens or the 7 sisters. But if we are able to look in a little bit closer, we will see that there are actually lots of stars here. This star cluster is filled with a couple hundred stars. We just see the brightest 6 or 7 with our naked eye. And it is a fantastic target to look for in the winter sky. As I said, it is incredibly bright. Even with a decent amount of light pollution, you can easily see it up in the sky. So it's a great one to look out for. And also right now, Mars is hanging out in Taurus. So if you see a second red thing that's not part of the V, that is the planet Mars. All right, 2 last constellations. For our next one, we are going to jump across this fuzzy band. That is our Milky Way galaxy that we're seeing there. So we're going to jump across the Milky Way to this next bright star, and this like squished pentagon almost. This is Auriga the Charioteer, so it's a guy who's riding a chariot. This is another one where I think it draws it a little bit differently than the way I was taught and the way I see it, which is perfectly fine. There's lots of different ways to interpret the pictures seen in the stars. So the way I see it is this is a wheel, this is a wheel, this is the chariot itself, and then this is Auriga's head peeking out over the top. So that is how I see it. You can see this is how they draw it. Don't really see a chariot there, but again, lots of artistic license with these constellations. And the last of our winter hexagon is this group of stars right here that sits in between Auriga and our little dog. So here we have the Gemini twins, Castor and Pollux. Castor has a long body and short little legs. Pollux has a short body and long legs. And they're both kind of arm in arm as they walk along the Milky Way. So there you have it. There are, okay, our 6 winter constellations. Again, Orion, Taurus, Auriga, Gemini, Canis Minor, and Canis Major. And these will be easily visible for not only this month, but for the rest of winter as well. So if you get a chance in the next month or two, they've got some really pretty constellations here to go out and see, and a couple of other things to look at. Like I said, Mars hanging out in Taurus, you have the Pleiades. The Orion Nebula is something you can see with your naked eye if you're in a decently dark space. You don't have to have a telescope to see that one. So lots of great things hanging out in our winter sky. And I think I'm going to wrap it up there. So let's head back over to our Zoom window and let's see if we've got any questions. No questions right now. All right. Well, if anyone has questions, now is a good time to put them in the chat. Let's see. I don't know if there's anything. Is there anything I didn't cover that you particularly like in the winter sky, Lynn?
Not that I can really think of. That's pretty much what I always go over too. So
Okay. Well, and this is another thing too. As I said at the beginning, Solarium is free. You can use this to explore other things that you might find. There are other constellations that I didn't talk about. One actually I can show real quick because I like doing this in Solarium. Right here underneath the little dog is the unicorn. It's not one that I can ever really point out myself because the stars are really dim and I just have not been able to quite remember how the constellation is put together. But I like showing it in Solarium because it looks like the little dog is riding the unicorn and I love it. It's my favorite. Um,
we did have one question real quick.
Yes.
Yeah, we had someone asking, what's the biggest constellation?
Ooh, I think it's Virgo. I'm pretty certain it's Virgo. But we can kind of take a look. So here, let me do something. One thing I will note, you do see that like when I was doing this, I was turning on single constellations at a time. That's an advanced function that I have turned on for my program. Keep putting the wrong. There we go. Normally, that's not the case. You just click the constellation button, and all of the constellations come up. So you don't have to know specifically where to click to get things to turn on. That is a function an advanced function that I just have turned on for this show. But you can also see the boundaries. So this is what I was talking about when I said that the IAU made an official map. This is what they did. They split the entire sky up into these 88 segments. And they did this so that every piece of the sky was associated with a constellation. That way we could say something like, hey, right now, I saw the moon over in Leo. And everyone would know which region of sky they were talking about. This was a defined region of sky by the IAU. So based off of this, I thought it was Virgo who I'm having trouble. Yeah, there's Virgo right there. Virgo is a really big constellation. But Hydra might be close. It's hard to tell area with the funky shapes.
Google said Hydra is bigger than Virgo, but they're the top two.
Okay.
I don't know
I
how
feel
accurate my very fast Googling was, but close enough, right?
I mean, that's basically what I said. I take that. Yeah. And Hydra's not one that we can really see well here in Minnesota. That's one that's definitely more visible the closer to the equator you get. And yes, I did just turn the ground off so that we could see the entire sky. It's really cool. You have that power to do that. But yeah, it's a great little program. I love it. And it's completely free. All right. Well, we will take, I say, one more call for questions, see if anything else comes in. In the meantime, let me show you what we've got going on this week. So for our in-person shows, on Friday, we're going to be doing Expedition Moons, which is a tour of many, not all, of the moons in our solar system. I say not all because there are some 200-300 of them, and we don't want to keep you there for hours. Plus, most of them aren't that interesting. But there are some really cool ones. And so we'll talk about those on Friday. Saturday, our family show is Earth, Moon, Sun, and our general public show that evening is Oasis in Space. And then you can find us back here next Wednesday for Ask an Astronomer, where we answer your questions, whatever they may be. All right. Well, I am not seeing anything else coming through, so I think we're good to wrap it up there. Thank you everyone so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you're interested in seeing any of our past shows, as I mentioned before, we do have them all saved over in the video tab on our Facebook page, or you can find them all up on our YouTube channel, which is linked in the video description. But yeah, thanks again. We hope to see you at future either streams or in person at the planetarium. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you later. Bye, everyone.